Good afternoon. Welcome to the Department of Consumer Affairs webinar for registered creditors. My name is Adam Burr, and I'm one of the attorneys here at the department. My partner today is Deborah Lockard, and she is the licensing supervisor. Let me tell you, she is a whiz at our online licensing platform, which we call the Licensing Gateway. So I protect consumers by ensuring that businesses follow the law, and occasionally I assist with processing some of the filings that you guys submit, and we're going to talk about some of those filings. Now, please note that renewal season is now in full swing as it runs from November 1st through January 31st. So we are a little bit over the halfway point. If you have any questions during this webinar, please feel free to type them into the questions feature, and we'll have a designated time for questions and answers near the end of the presentation. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, first, we have a legal disclaimer. This presentation is not meant to serve as a substitute for reading the various laws discussed, seeking legal counsel, or otherwise requesting department guidance and/or interpretations on the laws that it administers and enforces. The presentation merely serves as an introduction and an overview. So today we're going to talk about a brief intro of the department. Then we'll talk about closing fees. Then we'll talk about the maximum rate schedule. Then we'll talk about the consumer credit grantor notification. Then I'm going to turn it over to Deborah to talk about filing online. And then we'll go over some of the free resources available on our website. So we are the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. Our mission is to protect consumers from marketplace inequities, and we do that through advocacy, mediation, enforcement, and education. Now, while all of you are representatives of businesses, you're also consumers because you purchase goods and services on the marketplace every day. Now, there are many ways in which we can help you. You can file a complaint. You can report a scam. You can report identity theft. You can background a business. You can request a free presentation. And lastly, we can answer your questions. So here is our website. There are a lot of things that you can do on our website. You can file a complaint, get a license, background a business, report identity theft, report a scam, and request a presentation. And if you click the About Us menu, then you can find out about the many things that we do here at the department. Now, I want to show you about searching complaints on our website. By searching complaints, you're able to background a business. You can see how many complaints the business has. You can see the dates of the complaints. You can see summaries of the complaints. And you can see how the complaints were closed according to the department's guidelines. So here is a screenshot of our complaints database for a business that I picked. You might notice that this particular business seems to have a lot of complaints. The quantity of complaints is not necessarily the most important thing to consider when evaluating a business. It's more important to evaluate the types of complaints and how the complaints are resolved. And you can see that this company has mostly satisfactory resolutions. So now we come to the first of our three filings, the notice of the motor vehicle closing fees. Now, prior to charging a closing fee, a motor vehicle dealer must provide written notice to the department of the maximum amount of a closing fee that the dealer intends to charge. So first, what is a closing fee? So a closing fee is a fee for recovery of actual costs by an automotive dealership for all administrative and financial work needed to transfer and deliver the vehicle to the consumer. Now, closing fees are not intended to cover your selling costs and expenses or even all of your costs and expenses associated with operating your dealership. Closing fees are intended to cover the costs and expenses of transferring and delivering the vehicle from the dealership to the consumer. Now, these include, but are not limited to, compliance with all state, federal, and lender requirements, the preparation and retrieval of documents, the protection of the private personal information of the consumer, records retention, and storage costs. So who is required to file a closing fee? All motor vehicle dealers who want to charge a closing fee on a motor vehicle sales or lease contract. The fee must be filed with and permitted by the department prior to charging a closing fee. Now, the department has the authority to review proposed closing fees for reasonableness if the fee is above $225. Now, once you have your closing fee certificate, you do not need to apply for another one until you decide to change the amount or the ownership of the dealership changes. So now we'll talk about the second of these three filings, the maximum rate schedule. So any creditor charging a finance charge exceeding 18% APR must file an annual maximum rate schedule with the department and pay an annual filing fee of $40 per business location. Now, some of the common mistakes that we see in filing maximum rate schedules are not understanding the difference between a credit sale and a loan, which results in the wrong form being filed, not understanding the difference between variable and fixed APRs, and not understanding the various categories of transactions, specifically secured versus unsecured. So we're going to go over all of these in the next few slides. So first, when is a maximum rate schedule necessary? It's necessary whenever the consumer is being charged more than 18% APR. So this can happen in a variety of circumstances. You could need one if financing is offered at your business, such as the buy here, pay here model. Now, you could need one if all of the paperwork related to the sale is completed in your office at the time the sale takes place, and then the contract is later assigned to another business. This is known as indirect financing. And you could also need a maximum rate schedule when the sale is offered on credit, but the credit price differs from the cash price because of a finance charge. So let's say that I buy a car for $5,000. I'm going to make 10 $500 payments. And that would be purchasing the car on credit, but the credit price is equal to the cash price. Now let's say I buy that same car for $5,000, but instead of making 10 $500 payments, I'm going to make 12 $500 payments. So the total cost of the car is now $6,000. That extra $1,000 is a finance charge. So the sale is offered on credit, but the credit price is different from the cash price because of that finance charge. So here is an example of when a maximum rate schedule is needed. So let's say that the consumer purchases a car for $5,000. The consumer will make 24 monthly installments of $250 each. So in this scenario, the finance charge would be $1,000. When it is converted to an APR, the result is 18.16%. And as 18.16% is higher than 18%, a maximum rate schedule is needed. Without filing a maximum rate schedule of at least 18.16%, the most that the dealer could charge would be 18%. So what are the types of maximum rate filings? Essentially, they're going to be credit sale and consumer loan. Now, a credit sale occurs when a business sells an item to a borrower and allows the borrower to pay that business over a period of time. A consumer loan is when one business lends money to a borrower so that borrower can purchase an item from another business. So basically, if the consumer leaves your business with money, then it is a loan. But if the consumer leaves your business with a product or a service, it is a credit sale. So, for example, let's look at a car dealership. So, a car dealership might finance the actual purchase of the car as well as repair work done on the car. So, either way, it would be a credit sale and not a loan. So, if you finance the sale of either goods or services, then you should always file a maximum rate schedule for a credit sale and not a loan. Now, I cannot stress this enough. Unless you are actually lending money, then you should not be filing maximum rate schedules for loans. Loans are different from credit sales and they have different rules. For example, unless you are a supervised financial organization, such as a bank or a credit union, you must have a license from the Board of Financial Institutions to charge a finance charge in excess of 12% APR. That applies to loans. That does not apply to credit sales. And conversely, if you are a supervised lender, you cannot sell any goods. Okay, so it is important to know the difference between a loan and a credit sale. Okay, so if you are charging over 18% and you're making loans, please file the consumer loan application. If you're charging over 18% and making credit sales, please file the credit sale application. Also, do not indicate on the application that you're charging over 18% for one or the other when you're not. Okay? Because a lot of times what happens is you indicate on the application that you're charging over 18% for both and you only file one. And even if we can discern what your intention was, we still have to reach out to you and await for clarification before we can process your application. Now, registered creditors by far is our highest filing volume of filers. We receive thousands of applications every year for this particular program. So if we have to stop and reach out to you because there's an error on the application, it's going to take a lot longer to process. And this is especially true when you and all of your competitors are doing it. So please make sure that you are checking the right boxes and filing the right forms. Now we come to the difference between a variable rate and a fixed rate. So with a variable rate, the interest rate changes with the market. The interest rate on any outstanding balance will vary as the U.S. prime rate increases or decreases. So for example, let's assume that the variable interest rate on a credit card is the prime rate plus 12.75%. Okay, so now let's assume that the current prime rate is 5%. So in this instance, the margin, 12.75%, is added to the prime rate to come up with the total interest rate, which would be 17.75% if we assume a prime rate of 5%. Now, with a fixed rate, the interest does not change at all throughout the duration of the contract. It remains the same. Okay, the borrower is going to pay the same rate of interest regardless of what any type of changes in the market rate. Now also, please note that you may charge one consumer 20% and another consumer 25% because one consumer has better credit history than the other. That still would not make it a variable interest rate. Regardless of the amount of the rate, if the rate remains the same throughout the duration of the term, then it is a fixed rate. Now, if you do charge a variable rate, then you must provide the department with the index for calculating changes to the rate and the cap. Now, as a practical matter, variable rates are typically used in open-ended credit transactions, such as credit cards or sometimes in some mortgages. It is very rare for a credit seller to charge a variable rate on the sale of a good or service, or for a lender to charge a variable rate on a typical installment loan. Now, many businesses will file for a variable rate without providing the department with an index for how the rate is calculated. When this happens, the department must reach out to you for clarification and await your response to the request for clarification. If we don't receive a response from you, we will remove the variable rate, but we still have to wait the time frame that we tell you to respond in. Now, stating that you charge a variable rate without providing an index explanation, especially when you don't charge a variable rate at all, will slow down the processing time. Again, we get thousands of applications for this program every year, and it seems that lots of people get this wrong. So when you and all of your competitors are doing it, it's going to take longer to process. So please don't tell us that you're charging a variable rate when you don't. And if you are that rare business that actually does charge a variable rate, please provide us with the index explanation. So now we come to secured versus unsecured transactions. So secured transactions involve a lien on the property. The borrower will put up collateral that may be seized for failure to make payments. The property used for collateral may be real estate or non-real estate, such as a motor vehicle. Creditors may offer lower interest rates and better terms on secured credit transactions. Now, most motor vehicle dealers will use secured credit transactions when conducting motor vehicle sales so that they can repossess the vehicle in the event of a default. Now, with an unsecured credit transaction, it does not involve a lien on the property. There is no collateral. If the borrower fails to pay, the lender will initiate collection attempts and/or legal action. In other words, you cannot repossess the vehicle. With an unsecured transaction, the lender takes the borrower's word that he will repay the debt. Now, these are sometimes referred to as signature loans, or they're used for services that will not be seized, such as dental work or funeral merchandise. If collection actions are initiated, then the borrower's credit score will be negatively impacted. And as a reminder, if you are planning to repossess a vehicle in the event of default, then you would file with a secured category for the maximum rate schedule. Now, you can file for both secured and unsecured and have different rates for each. So, for example, you may have a maximum rate schedule with a secured category as it relates to selling a vehicle and an unsecured category as it relates to repair work on that vehicle. Now, open-end credit is also known as revolving credit. There is no end date. The borrower is allowed to make repeated purchases or obtain loans. As long as the borrower makes the payments, he's allowed to constantly get new loans or make new purchases. And this arrangement continues until the borrower and the creditor end the relationship. So an example of an open-end credit would be a credit card. So here's a chart showing the different types of categories for maximum rate schedule filings. There's unsecured, which again means that there's not any lien on the property. There's secured, which means that there is a lien on the property, and the lien can be on real estate or non-real estate. There is open-end or revolving, which does not have an end date. And lastly, there is other, which is when no other category is appropriate. Now, the department is not aware of any situation when the other category would be appropriate because they're typically going to be either secured or unsecured or possibly open end. So please do not select other. Even though it's on there, we have to have it because it's in the statute. In the statute, the legislature just put it in as a catch-all, but we are not aware of any circumstance in which other would be an appropriate category. So please do not select other. So now we come to the last of the three filing requirements, the consumer credit grantor notification. Now at the department, we call this filing the CGN, so I might refer to it by that initialism. Persons who make consumer credit sales, leases, or loans, or who engage in rent-to-own transactions, and persons who take assignment of rights against debtors arising from such transactions are required to file a notification form. So when is a CGN filing necessary? You must file a CGN if your business either engages in consumer credit sales, consumer loans, consumer leases, or consumer rental purchase agreements in South Carolina, or you have an office or place of business in South Carolina which takes assignment of and undertakes direct collection of payments from consumer credit sales, loans, leases, or rental purchase agreements. You also must have an annual gross volume of business in excess of $150,000, and you use written agreements to extend consumer credit. Now, your total gross volume of business would be your total gross receipts, not just your South Carolina income, and not just from credit transactions. Now, an easy way to locate this number is to look at your tax return. So this is going to be the first number that is reported on the tax return. And if you file forms 1065, 1120, or 1120S, it's going to be on line 1A. If you file form 1040 with a Schedule C, it's going to be on line 1 of the Schedule C. Now, mathematically, let's say that a car dealer sold one car every week in a year at $3,000 per car. So its gross volume of business would be $156,000. Now, if you meet the statutory requirements, you must file the CGN and pay a filing fee of $120 per location. Now, if you extend credit on your website or your app, or if you allow for payments to be made on your website or your app, then your website or app is a separate business location, and you must file a CGN for it. So here are some examples of filing scenarios. All right, so we have a company that is offering consumer loans in South Carolina. It has an annual gross volume of business of $200,000, but does not use written agreements to extend consumer credit. A CGN filing is not required. So now let's say a company has an office in South Carolina where it takes assignment of credit sales. It uses written agreements, but it only has a gross volume of business of $100,000. In this instance, no CGN filing is required. But now let's say a company offers consumer credit sales or consumer loans in South Carolina, has an annual gross volume of business of $300,000, and uses written agreements. A CGN filing is required. Now, which CGN form should you file? If you engage solely in making consumer rental purchase agreements, which are also known as rent-to-own transactions, then use the rent to own form. Otherwise, use the regular form. Now, a rental purchase agreement is an agreement for the use of personal property by an individual primarily for personal, family, or household purposes for an initial term of 4 months or less, whether or not there is an obligation beyond the initial period. It's automatically renewable with each payment, and it permits the consumer to become the owner of the property. Now, rent-to-own transactions are typically used for items such as furniture, appliances, and consumer electronics. So now that you know about the 3 types of filings, please remember that the renewal period runs from November 1st to January 31st. Now, most businesses will file in late January, so that is our high filing period. Now, while only car dealers would file the closing fee notification, lots of different types of businesses have to file the CGM and the max rate. So accordingly, you, your competitors, and even other types of businesses that would not be your competitors, they're all filing at the same time. Again, we get thousands of applications for these programs every year. So this is our busiest program. So the sooner that you file, the sooner your application gets processed. Also, your applications get processed faster if they do not contain any mistakes.
Hi, this is Deborah Friday Locker, licensed supervisor, and I hope everyone's doing well and enjoying the holiday season. Today, we're going to be going over some features in the licensure gateway, including the renewal. So now, let's talk about the licensure gateway. What is the licensure gateway? The Licensure Gateway is the department's online system used to provide a single portal to manage licensees and listings. It grants access to printable documents, invoices, online applications, and many more features. The Licensure Gateway is used to submit all initial and renewal applications. Documents can be uploaded in the Licensure Gateway also. Now, our online system is available for use to approve organization administrators at any time. The Licensure Gateway supports 15 programs that the department regulates. Today, we're going to go over just a portion of our online system. We're going to talk about logging into the Licensure Gateway for the very first time, becoming an organization administrator, and finally, how to file your renewal application. The website address for the Licensure Gateway is dcagateway.sc.gov. Now, if you have already registered to use the Licensure Gateway, you do not need to register again. This process that we're going to go over is for first-time users only. So once you have logged into the website at dcagateway.sc.gov, you're going to just select Register Now. You're going to enter a password and then select Next. Also, you're going to verify that password. Now, remember to always keep personal information in a safe and secure place. Next, you will receive a confirmation. You may print this page for your records as your account has successfully been created. You are all done registering to use the Licensure Gateway, so you would just select Exit. Now, let's talk about becoming an organization administrator. What is an organization administrator? An organization administrator will be the person or persons at the business who will be responsible for processing initials, renewals, printing certificates, paying fees, or making changes, etc. To become an administrator, you must submit an administrator's request to the department online, and that request must be approved. A business or organization can also have more than one administrator. A request must be submitted for each administrator. So, to become an administrator, let's go over that process. You would log into the licensure gateway. Then you would click on the organization administration or click under user options to submit an administrator's request to the department. So you actually have two options. You will enter your personal social security number. The system uses the social security number to consolidate an individual's license and access to information that's in the system or in the database. And then you would select search. So you're going to use your own personal social security number. Now, if you get to this page and you get an error message, you can contact us because most likely you have already registered and you probably have two different registrations in our database. So you can contact us and we'll be happy to help you. Now, if you don't get an error message, which is good, you would just select continue. Using the drop-down arrow, select your business from the list. Now, some businesses have very, very similar names. So be sure you are selecting the correct business or the correct organization and make sure the address is correct. All of our licensees are in this list, okay? Also, keep in mind that only the corporate names are in the list. DBA names, such as doing business as, names are not listed in this particular list. So once you have submitted your request, you're going to make sure, before you have submitted your request, you're going to make sure that all the information is right. You're going to take a look at the organization's name. You're going to take a look at the address, and then you're going to submit your request to us to be approved. You will be returned to the home page and you'll see a banner, and that banner is going to indicate a pending admin request has been found. Now, no business information will be visible yet. By that, I mean you will see no information regarding your business. You only see your name. There's no business information here, and there's no business information there yet until you are approved. The department will approve your admin request, but you may have to log back in later. So if your request has not been approved within one business day, within one day, that business day, please contact the department. We'll be happy to help. Now notice you can see the name of your organization right under organization name. In the red box, you can see that Jack Cars LLC. So now you will be able to see more information that's regarding your business. Now let's talk about how to submit a renewal application. And of course, you're going to log into the licensure gateway. You're going to enter your email address and password. Now, once you have logged in, you're actually going to click on expiring soon for the consumer granted notification. You will be able to file your CGN, which is that's the consumer granted notification, and the max rate at one time. Now, if you look over here, you're going to see the motor vehicle dealer closing fee. Notice that that closing fee expires 12/31/2099. So you do not have to file a closing fee application unless that business is changing the amount or the ownership of the dealership changes. So that motor vehicle dealer closing fee applications are not required to be renewed. So you're actually going to click on expiring soon for the CGN, and both applications will come up for you to complete. Now, under options, you're going to click on the renewal application. You're going to read over the instructions. You're going to get instructions, and you're going to read over those instructions, and then you're going to click I agree and then select next. Make sure that you read the instructions and read over the questions that are asked of you. To complete the application, you have to have the answer to these questions. The max rate renewals. It's going to ask you what was the highest APR your business charged on consumer credit sales loans during the previous 12 months. What was the most frequent APR your business charged on consumer credit sales during the previous 12 months? And then also there's going to be a questions in the application for the credit grantor notification. They're going to ask you the annual gross volume of the business in cash and credit combined, the dollar amount reported to the IRS on your most recent tax return. Also, the total number of consumer credit transactions, sales, loans, leases, rent to own with South Carolina consumers during the previous 12 months. So before you submit your application, make sure that you have the answers to all of these questions because you will not be able to submit it. So gather those answers and then click I agree and next. You're going to review the company details information. Now, most of the information is already pre-populated for you. We tried to make this application as user-friendly as possible. So most of the information is going to be there already. Now, if you see an asterisk, you see like there's an asterisk here, you might consider sort of small. But anything that has an asterisk, a red asterisk beside it, has to be completed. Also, make sure that the business email is complete. You see, right here is actually not showing where that email address is complete. So you want to make sure that it is complete. Okay? And just review everything to make sure that everything is accurate. You're going to review all the information. Make sure the contact information is accurate also, because a lot of times we have to reach out to your contact persons, and a lot of times the contact persons are no longer there. So it kind of holds up the process. So if everything is complete, we can get your process really fast. Now you get to the location details screen. You're going to click on Renew to proceed through the application. Clicking on edit allows you to make changes to the location. So see if there's some changes that you needed to make to that location. Say a name was spelled wrong on the address and you needed to make some changes here. You can make those changes right here by just clicking on the edit button. But to proceed through the application, you always need to click on renew and then you would actually click on next. Now, also on this same screen, you can actually discontinue a location. Say if you had 3 or 4 or maybe more locations and you're no longer using one of those locations, they're not operating, you can select discontinue. And that application, of course, will not show up for you to complete. To proceed through the application, we're going to select renew. So you're going to go and you're going to select renew because that's what takes you through the application process. And at any time, if you have any questions, Tanisha is really, really good at registered creditors. You can contact her, you can contact myself, you can contact Teresa, and we're going to give you their contact information later on. We'll be happy to help you. If you have any questions or you get stuck or anything, just give us a call. We want you to get your application in as quick as possible. Now, you're going to click on the drop-down arrow to renew, or you can select do not renew this license if the filing is no longer needed. So if you look up under the consumer grantor notification, you're actually going to see where it says renew this license. Also, notice that the motor vehicle dealer closing fee is not available for renewal. You do not have to renew your closing fee dealer application or that license any longer unless you're making changes to the fee amount or there's changes in your structure. That would be the owners. Okay, so now we're actually at the consumer granted notification application. Same thing, you want to make sure that you read over the instructions, you're going to review everything, and then you're going to complete the application. Also, if you look to your very left, you're going to see instructions, company details, location details. See, those items are now all marked green. If there's some changes that you need to make, just click on that green check mark and you'll be able to make those changes. You're going to answer all the questions, read the questions carefully before answering them. You're going to continue to answer the questions. Now, pay close attention to this question here. It asks you to select all ways in which consumer transactions are made. And Attorney Berg explained the consumer credit sales and consumer loans very good. But if you have any questions or you get confused, like I said, you can just contact us. But he gave us a lot of information and good definitions on consumer credit sales and consumer loans. You're going to continue answering the questions and then you are going to select next. And remember, you go ahead on and make sure you have the answer to these two questions because you cannot proceed through the application unless you have the answers. And then you would just select next. Now comes the max rate credit sales application and it's credit sales for Jack's Cars LLC. So you're going to select add to enter the category and the max rate. So you would just select add. You're going to select the correct category. Also, car dealers they always use secured credit sales, non-real estate, as it gives them the ability to repossess. You can also refer back to the definitions regarding the categories. So Mr. Berg gave us the information about unsecured and secured real estate, open end. He talked about the other, but if you have questions, let us know. You're going to select the correct category and max rate. You're going to put your max rate in and add that information to your renewal application. You're going to continue answering all the questions and then you are going to select next. And also, I'm just giving you heads up. You got to have these questions ahead of time unless you're going to get stuck and you're going to be waiting there to get your application submitted. But you got to have the answers to these questions. So get those first. Okay, so now that you have submitted your application, you have entered in all your information, you're going to get the verification page. You haven't quite submitted it yet, but you're going to get the verification page. On your left, if you need to make any changes, click on those check marks and make those changes. Say if you submit your application, then you realize I've made a mistake. I didn't mean to put 50%. I didn't mean to put 50% as my APR. I actually meant to put 65%. You can email us at legal@scconsumer.gov, and we'll give you that email address later on at the end of the webinar. Email us and tell us, hey, I made a mistake. Could you fix this? And we can fix that before it's approved. Okay? So review your application. Very good. Look at all your answers And then once you have reviewed that application, then that's when you hit I agree and submit your application. And we talked about remembering to click on the green check marks if you've made any errors. So you're going to submit your application. Now, once you have submitted your application, you're going to click on Pay Online and follow the steps to submit your payment. You can also select Pay by Check or Money Order, but if you pay online, that gets your application approved quicker. Okay. So if you decide to send a check or money order, that check or money order must be received by the department within 7 days. Must be received. So you see that there's $160 due because you submitted your consumer grantor location renewal, and then you also submitted your max rate credit sales, and that was $40. So that's $160 that's due. It's quick and easy to pay online, and like I said, we're going to process your application as quick as possible. Now, we do have an organization user guide, which is fantastic. Now, that user guide, if you have issues with paying your invoices or paying by check, it walks you through step by step how to pay invoices by credit card. It tells you how to pay invoices by check. We spend a lot of time getting these guides ready for you guys, and a lot of my licensees have taken advantage of using them. Okay, so you will receive an email letting you know we received your application. So once your application is submitted, you're going to get an email that says the application registration you filed with South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs online license system has been received. That's why you want to make sure that that email address is accurate. And if you're changing contact emails, administrators' emails, make sure you keep all of that updated because we send emails out directly to you. Okay. Once the department has processed your application, you will receive a process notification email. And that email is going to let you know, hey, you can actually log into SCDCA and you can print your certificate. You can print your certificates. We also tell you in that same email where you can go and get a copy of the user guide. So it's a wealth of information in that user guide, and we want everyone to have that great tool. Now, we get some questions on printing certificates for you guys, so we wanted to go over that briefly. Printing certificates quick and easy, so we're going to go over how to print your certificate. Of course, you're going to log into the licensure gateway at dcagateway.sc.gov, and then once you log in, you're going to click on the organization's name. Look at the very bottom of the page, and you're going to see Jack's Cars LLC. So you're going to click on the organization name, and then you're going to go back to the bottom of the screen again, and you're going to click on locations. You see where it says locations, and then there's a 1 beside it, right with that red arrow. So that tells you that you have one location. Some of our licensees have 25, 30, 50 locations. So you're just going to click on locations. And then once you click on locations, under the location name, you're going to see the name of your location. This is a test system, so we're using this as a model for testing. But you see where it says testing and there's a red arrow beside it, you're going to click on the location's name. And then once you click on the location's name, it's going to bring you to this page, and you're going to click on the consumer granted notification, or you can click on the max rate credit sales, whatever certificate you want to print but you do have to have both of these certificates printed and posted on your wall. So if you click on a consumer granted notification, you're going to see print certificate of approval. So once you click on print certificate of approval, then the certificate will load. Okay? And once the certificate loads, you're going to review the certificate before posting it on your wall. And then you're going to follow the same process to print the max rate certificate. Now, certificates are not required to be printed on color paper. That was something in the past. You do not have to print them on color paper. Certificates must be posted in a conspicuous place at the business location. Keep in mind, certificates are not transferable or assignable. Remember, the renewal period begins annually November 1st through January 31st, and that's annually, okay? And also, always review the name. Make sure the name is spelled right on your certificates, the address is right. You can look at our administrator's name. Her name is Carrie Groovy Liebacher. And just keep in mind that certificates are non-transferable and you do have to post the certificate. So now you have submitted your renewal and your renewal has been approved and you do not have to actually file again until November. And it's hard to believe that will be November of 2025.
All right, so what if you forget that everything that we just told you regarding the filings? You can go to our website, consumer.sc.gov, hover over the menu item that says Business Resources/Laws, then click Licensing, then click Registered Creditors. So here you'll find some valuable resources that will address the filing requirements. All right, so here's the contact information for various staff members should you have any questions during the renewal period. For general legal questions, including filing requirements, please feel free to reach out to me. One caveat on that, I'm not allowed to give you legal advice, but I can answer questions about the law. For more of the nuts and bolts of how to file and what you need to submit, please feel free to reach out to Tanisha Baskett, Deborah Lockhart, or Teresa DiVittorio Burns. For questions pertaining to the CGN or the maximum rate schedule, you can reach out to Tanisha or Deborah. And for questions pertaining to the closing fees notification, you can reach out to Teresa. I do see that we have one question that came in. I'm going to answer that in a minute, but we'll see if there's any more questions. And again, you can use the questions feature to type them in. And while you type in your questions, let me take this time to tell you how to connect with us on social media. I'll list some free resources. Please connect with us on social media. You can like us on Facebook, you can follow us on X, and you can check out our YouTube channel. And we have tons of free resources on our website, and these include our Ditch the Pitch, which concerns scams, our Identity Theft Prevention Guide, which tells you steps to take to prevent becoming a victim of identity theft, as well as measures to take to mitigate the damage should you become a victim of identity theft. And our credit report guide tells you what to know about reviewing your credit report. We also have dozens more. And all of our presentations can be sent to you completely free of charge. For businesses, we also have some additional helpful resources on our website. For example, you can see your competitors' maximum rate schedules and their closing fees. So here is a flow chart that lets you know if you need to file a CGN or a maximum rate schedule and what form to file. So here's a flow chart to help you determine the correct category for the maximum rate schedule. And here's a flow chart that will help you determine whether you need to file for a closing fee and what needs to be submitted. Now, this is the first year that renewal is not required for the closing fees. So just as a reminder, you only have to submit a new application if you increase your closing fee amount or the ownership of the dealership changes. All right, so a question that came in earlier. What about if we no longer have new business? We're only taking payments from customers, and this is for the CGN form. That is a great question. So historically, it has been the department's position that as long as you are still collecting on the debt, then you should maintain your CGN filing form. So great question. Thank you so much for that. Well, here's my contact information again. And if you have any additional questions later, please feel free to reach out to me. I thank you so much for watching this presentation, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.